Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always, told out of voice of radio. So today we need to look at the banhammer. Japan has been going crazy with the banhammer today. I just showed you a video explaining that Japan has just banned in expanded only Marshadow, Miss Magius, and Flabébé. I am still beyond amused that Flabébé has gone and gotten banned. I will, of course, link that video in the description so you can peruse at your leisure. But probably more seriously than these bans, they've gone and banned a couple of trainer cards because somebody went and broke the game in Japan. There was one deck that went and dominated their expanded format at the big Tokyo event this past weekend, and it's led to a bunch of cards being banned. And the most interesting one of them is Island Challenge Amulet, a card that isn't even out here yet. Though I should mention as a side note, as it stands, this is only in Japan, and it is only in expanded. But even if we don't get all the bans, and I think we will, they have to ban Island Challenge Amulet. They have to. And here's the reason why. Jirachi EX. You see, Jirachi EX with Island Challenge Amulet creates a frankly broken combo. Now, the thing is, Island Challenge Amulet, when you attach it to a Pokemon EX or GX, that Pokemon EX or GX gets 100 less HP, but if it's KO'd by damage from an attack, then it gives up one fewer prize. Now at this stage, a bunch of you should be going, well hang on a second, Jirachi's only got 90 HP. Yes, it does only have 90 HP. So what happens when you attach an Island Challenge Amulet? Jirachi gets KO'd. Wait a second, why would you want to KO Jirachi? And the answer is because N is a thing. N is a thing, ladies and gentlemen. And N is a card, it's only expanded at the moment. But what it does is each player shuffles a hand into their deck and draws a number of cards equal to their remaining prizes. So you play an Island Challenge Amulet onto a Jirachi, KO it, your opponent takes 2 prizes. You play an Island Challenge Amulet onto a Jirachi, your opponent takes 2 more prizes. They've now got 2 prizes remaining. Now, I mentioned Miss Magius in my previous video. You can KO it and then draw until you got 7 cards in hand. And because of Duskstone, you can get it going turn 1 going first. And then you give your opponent another prize. Your opponent's taken 5 prizes. Hang on a second. That sounds pretty good. Now they've only got to take 1 more prize to win. And then you play N. And your opponent goes down to 1 card remaining in their hand. Oh, that's how you do it. Cool. Now I'm going to show you, it was a Garchomp Giratina deck that really did abuse this over in Japan. I am going to show you a proper profile of that video in the near future. The point we're looking at here is the cards that got banned and why. Now, if your opponent has 1 card in hand in the expanded format, that could be a Professor Sycamore. They draw 7 cards, and then they can draw out of it, take 1 prize, and win the game. We need to stop that happening. But they've also just banned Lieutenant Surge's strategy. Now, Lieutenant Surge's strategy is a card that, honestly, we all kind of figured it would get banned at some point. If you're behind on prizes, you can play 2 supporters, as in you play this, and then you get to play 2 more supporters. Okay, sounds alright. And one of them's N. What's the other one? Mars. Yep, you see, Mars, very nice supporter card. What it does is you draw 2 cards, and then you discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Except you've just handed your opponent 5 prizes, end them down to a 1 card hand, and then discarded a random card from their hand. Except it's not a random card from their hand, it's the only card in their hand. And this is only possible because Lieutenant Surge's strategy allows you to play 2 supporters. You see where we're going with this, ladies and gentlemen? Your opponent literally does not have a hand of cards. Now, you could argue, why don't you ban N? N is a good comeback card. N is a card which is used for good. It's draw power in the early game. It's disruption for your opponent in the late game. We don't want your opponent to have 0 cards in hand when they start their turn. But we don't mind if your opponent goes out to a 5-0 prize lead, you playing a card to slow them down, create a bit of back and forth. Similarly, Mars is not that good a card. Mars is only good, really good, where you can get down your opponent's hand and then play Mars. But this is extremely extreme. Your opponent now has 0 cards left in hand. Which brings me to the third ban we need to mention in this video, Chip Chip Ice Axe. You see, Chip Chip Ice Axe is a card that allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. You choose one of them to go on the top of your opponent's deck, your opponent shuffles the other 2 in, and then places a chosen card on top of their deck. Well, that just seems cruel. Because now, you have put your opponent down to a 0 card hand, and you've gone and fixed their top deck. And then next turn, you're going to play Chip Chip Ice Axe to fix their top deck. And then the next turn, you see where I'm going with this? And bearing in mind, this is all happening on your first turn of the game, going first, before your opponent has even drawn a card. They have 0 cards in hand. You decide which of the top 3 cards of their deck they actually draw. So you're just going to give them like a basic energy or an evolution they can't use or a supporter card that isn't going to give them a card advantage, etc. And then they literally can't play and they win the game. Which turns the format into, did you win the coin flip? Now, to be fair, in Japan they tend to play rock, paper, scissors rather than flipping a coin. But it all but turns it from Pokemon into rock, paper, scissors. You win rock, paper, scissors, you win the game. And to be clear, in Expanded, we've got Hooper, which allows you to search for free EXs. We've got Shaman that lets you draw until you got 6 cards in your hand. And we got Jirachi EX that lets you search a supporter. So you can search out the N and the Mars using Jirachi. Hooper gets you Jirachi and Shaman. You play Skyfield as your stadium of choice. And you get this rolling. Like I say, I'll show you a proper deck profile tomorrow. We don't have time to go through everything today. But the point of the combo is you draw super fast using Hooper, Jirachi, and Shaman. You then use Island Challenge Amulet on Jirachi and Miss Magius to give your opponent 5 prizes. N to put them down to a single card hand. Mars to take that card away from them. Chip Chip Ice Axe to fix their top deck. And then they just don't get to play. They literally do not get to play the game. Because they have 1 card. And it is the card that you decided they could have. They don't even get a random card. They get the worst card from the top 3 cards of their deck. That's why these 3 cards had to be banned. Now, Island Challenge Amulet, you've got to ban that or Jirachi. But Jirachi's great for searching out supporters. And I know we have Tapu Lele, but Hooper will get Jirachi. And it's got 90 HP, so it gives up 2 easy prizes for your opponent. Jirachi isn't the problem, Island Challenge Amulet is. Lieutenant Surge, we all knew that was going to be banned at one point. Playing multiple supporters is silly. And Chip Chip Ice Axe, the problem is we're banning a bunch of hand disruption. We don't like hand disruption, but along with hand disruption, we got Chip Chip Ice Axe. We've all seen the combo with Gardevoir and Sylveon, whose GX attack shuffles your entire hand into your deck. And then next turn, you start playing Chip Chip Ice Axe to fix their top deck. It is degenerative, it stops you playing, those 3 cards went for a reason. Now, there were 2 other cards that were banned in Japan. One of them was Getsis, and I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here, because Getsis was banned outside of Japan a little while ago, so I've made a video all about it. Basically, you play at turn 1, your opponent reveals all of their item cards, shuffles them into their deck, and then you draw a card for each one they shuffled in. But it gets rid of the Pokemon search like Ultra Ball, and it gets rid of a whole bunch of other stuff. If you hit them right with a Getsis going first turn 1, they can't play, and they lose the game there and then. It's not as certain as the combo we've been talking about in this video, but make no mistake about it, when you hit right, your opponent loses, they haven't drawn a card. It's not fun to play that way. And the final ban was red card. Now, red card is an interesting one because red card can be taken advantage of, but using other cards. So we can look at something like Jesse and James, which says both players discard 2 cards from their hand. Well, red card and then Jesse and James, okay, that's pretty broken, especially double Jesse and James using Lieutenant Surge, but those cards have been banned. Similarly, using a red card and then combining it with something like the Floette, whereby when you evolve up, your opponent shuffles a random card from the hand into their deck, or Florges, which is the same but with 2 cards, but we've just banned Flabebe, which got those Floette and Florges out a little bit faster. So a lot of the degenerative combos here have gone and been banned. But having said that, we banned Marshadow. And Marshadow is very similar to red card, with the exception of Marshadow puts you and your opponent down to a new 4-card hand. Red card is just your opponent. And I'm basically just going to repeat what I said about Marshadow. You go first, you get to use Pokemon Draw, maybe something like Oranguru or Miss Magius. And you get to use your supporter for the turn, maybe something like Cynthia or Professor Sycamore. And then when you've done everything, or even halfway through to be honest, you drop a red card to put your opponent down to a 4-card hand. So you've played with a regular size hand with all the advantages, and before your opponents even started the game, they're down to a 4-card hand. It slows your opponent down before they've even had a turn. And if there's one thing that Pokemon bans have shown us over the past couple years, Pokemon are willing to ban cards which stop you playing the game. And red card, when you go first, before your opponent's had a turn, slows them down in a way which just isn't fun. And we like the game being fun. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the other bans that have come down in Japan. I had completely missed the Island Challenge Amulet Jirachi combo. I pride myself on seeing pretty much everything in the game. That was a huge combo that completely passed me by. Shout out to the lovely Antoine Boulet who had explained it to me and told me why it was so gosh darn broken. Yeah. I think it is absolutely guaranteed we will lose Island Challenge Amulet and probably Lieutenant Surge over here. Island Challenge Amulet, you cannot have it in a format with Jirachi and N. It is asking for a degenerative format where you just KO2 Jirachi and then end your opponent. Now it is worth noting as a little appendix on the end of this video, Japan is changing their rule whereby you are not allowed to play supporters turn 1 going first. Now these bans come in on October the 4th and the new rule comes in on November the 29th, I believe. So there is a little bit of a gap between them. Obviously all of these supporter combos are going to be a bit less degenerative when you can't play supporters going first, but it's not going to make a huge difference. Because what's going to happen is one player is going to go first, set up as well as they can, and then the other player is going to go second and pull off this combo. The only difference is that the first player gets a chance to set up without supporters before the degenerative combo would be dropped, which is why these bans have to come in, even bearing in mind the rule change. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's been banned and that's the reason why. But at this stage, I would very much like to know what you think about these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.